All right. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Market open here for it's an interesting open this morning ahead of tomorrow's midterm elections here in the U.S. We also have more China U.S. trade drama going on. And then we also have another big week of earnings season, and really the last of the big weeks of earnings season. We'll have earnings trickle in afterwards, but we'll start hearing from quite a few names this week, and nothing that I look at and say, oh, this is going to be major market moving. The market has had enough of the data to basically be able to say, hey, it's in, it's a really big chunk here of what things are. So anyway, we see Apple, kind of driving some things here this morning. I was asked about Apple over the weekend and my thoughts on it after the earnings and everything else. I shared my thoughts a little bit last week, but as I went through the earnings report, there's nothing in it that makes me go, wow, this stock is cheap. Man, this stock has some real value here. There's also nothing in it where I go, man, this stock is just outrageously priced right here and it's got to go down. For me, Apple, after this report, is very much a neutral. It's very much something I'm willing to buy on a dip and I'm willing to sell on a rip. And, it's something where, today's action is giving me a technical setup? No. So I'm not really looking to, to enter or do anything here with it. But, I kind of look at the earnings report and I go, okay, I can see why it's selling, right? That whole idea of revenue growth it's still growing, but it's slowing in its growth. So that's, the reason for the sell-off. And so it needs some sort of catalyst to say, hey, there's going to be something to catalyze some revenue, an increase in growth. And, you get a piece of news like this morning, it's the contrary to that, only goes to those slowing arguments, and so it's going to pull on back. But I very much view it like Micron. I'm willing to buy it after it dips for a while, and with Apple, if we get down here in the 190, 185 area, which I think is very possible, we start to have a little valuation come back into Apple, but I don't think this is one of those you can look at and say, Apple, this is a cheap stock out there. This is a good value right here, one that I want to go invest in and say, hey, you know what, a couple years from now, I'm going to be golden. I think it's a hard proposition, a hard argument to make right now, and not one that I'm willing to make right here with the stock and, as I look at it here with the earnings report. Another stock that I was asked about that I want to just quickly mention here before moving on is Celgene. Now, this is a biotech pharma company. It's one that historically relies on acquisitions to go out and increase their sales and revenues. It's a company whose revenues just continue to grow, but there have been some very, very questionable decisions made, and, fine, in hindsight, they're questionable, but in real time, what does Celgene do? Well, historically, it goes out and buys companies that are developing drugs and, continues the development and markets them and profits there from them. With Celgene here, they've had a couple where they bought Juno Therapeutics and a few others where the drugs that they bought have not really developed out to really fit into their sales pipeline. One of their major drug or one of their major revenue sources is starting to get some generic competition. So, it's a company that, look, it's going to go out and buy more companies. And All right, good morning. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. Market down here just a little bit this morning. And, as we kind of go ahead of, or we're sitting ahead of the U.S. elections, midterm elections. Here tomorrow, we have some China-U.S. trade war. I'd argue the main driver of the market here this morning, really comes down to Apple. And the news on Apple, as far as the early morning driver here, and seeing some of their phones and some of their low value phones, kind of rumored to not be doing as well as expected, kind of coming off of the earnings report from last week. So Apple really kind of dragging things down and really kind of weighing around the neck of tech here today. You can see the Qs, trading on down here this morning. And we've talked about, okay, what do I want to see to go and get in? I want to see some higher lows. I want to see some of these higher lows come in. And so let's take a quick look at some of the stocks on Katie's watch list where I'm looking for higher lows to come in. Let's see if we're anywhere close. Here's something. Here's UNH, right? This is one that we talked about, and I want to see that kind of perfect position here. It pulled on back this morning, gapped above the 7-hour moving average. And typically, I'd say, you know what? This is a pretty nice buy point. This is a pretty good, good situation. It's coming off the lower band, gapping above the 7-hour. Jeff, why don't you get in? Sometimes you see what you want, and at the same time, you look at it and you go, something's off. Something's a little bit missing here. So yes, it is something I would like to get into. Yes, it gave me a buy signal here this morning. But given everything else that we're seeing, I'm going to hold off here just a little bit. The options aren't fantastic. They're not terrible. But UNH is one that, gave me kind of that element here. But I'm going to be I do want to see a little bit more of the market play out. Outside of UNH, most everything else, just not even close. Here's Nike. We're looking for, a pullback into the retracement area. No, we're not there. Boeing, we're looking for a pullback into the retracement area. No, still not there. Yeah, the stock's down, but still not there. Caterpillar, it rallied $1 or so this morning. Looking for it to come into the retracement area. No, still not there. JP Morgan, you kind of get the point here. Still not there. JP Morgan, like UNH, gapped above the 7-hour. Here this morning, but you can see Bank of America, similar situation, but these are two that I would expect to outperform if the market decides to find a bottom here this morning. But if the market's not able to find a bottom here this morning, we're going to see these give up their gains and pull on back. And when you look at the overall market, here this morning being driven by tech, when we see sell-offs in mornings driven by tech, generally we don't see hard, fast rebounds, quick, fast rebounds come into play. And here you can see the Qs, they're down over 1% here this morning, really taking it on the chin. A lot of the major components, really getting hit hard. We see Amazon, down 3%. We see Adobe down, 2%. So we just continue to see, these tech stocks not be able to find any sort of buyer, here with them, and not really get any sort of, real buy signal, coming into them. So, most of the stocks on my watch list, they're just kind of in that spot of, no, they just haven't given enough here just yet. We saw some news on Lowe's this morning, that Lowe's was closing a whole bunch of stores. Now, that's kind of some expected news, to come. That was something that has been rumored and talked about as being needed. One of the things the activist investor talked about back here. And so not surprised to see that. Sometimes when you see that, you get some tradable price action. So far this morning, I don't think there's anything really that different other than just waiting for a higher low to come in and to go with it. And in fact, a lot of these setups, like the Caterpillars, like the Boeings, path of least resistance in the short term, like we talked on Friday, it is probably lower. And it's one of those where, personally, I don't think there's a huge reward to the downside, but in terms of the short-term path of least resistance, that's probably what what we're looking at. Visa, kind of starting to pull back a little bit as well. Micron pulling back here this morning, was down $1 last I saw. Okay, $1.39. This is one that was a lot further from the retracement area, but we could see this come back into the retracement area. But overall, most of the stocks on the list kind of look about the same. A few exceptions with some of the energy names, and I looked at Conoco and I thought, what, do I go buy this morning? And one of the reasons I priced it out is because it gapped above this 7-hour moving average, right? We have a higher low, here on the hourly chart. We have a series of higher lows here. We had a nice little punch up. We've been trading down in this channel, gapped above the 7-hour moving average this morning. You say, Jeff, why don't you take it? Well, yeah. I'll take it if it holds, right? I'll take it if it holds. You probably remember even this challenge. We've bought several of these gaps on the, move above the 7-hour. And, the three that I can think of on the top of my head, Caterpillar being one of the big ones, it kind of did this and danced around all day, and yeah, it ticked up a little bit, but by the end of the day, the options were actually cheaper, even though the stock was a little bit higher. So when I look at the option prices Monday morning, a little bit inflated, see the action, I go, okay, you know what? This is something that I, can look at and buy into the close here today. But buying it right here on the open, I'm gonna be a little bit more patient. But very interesting action within this energy space. We saw Diamond Offshore earnings, DO. And, they were down quite a bit, but, have really kind of held in there here this morning. But overall, it's one where Halliburton really kind of a nice move here, taking this little flaggy action, and instead of breaking down, trying to break higher. One that if we see some pretty good volume on Halliburton, to expect it to pull up into the retracement area here in this 37 to 39 area. I think it's the path of least resistance. So, Conoco, Halliburton, very, very tempting here. And two that I think are, two of the better prospects here this morning for how the market is ticked and how the market is traded here, early this morning and late, last week. Now, we talked about, about a week and a half ago, about how to find some of the stocks that are going to be top performers going forward after this correction. Because we've had earnings season, we've had a lot of different things going on, and that one of the best ways to find them is simply by doing a little bit of screening, a little bit of scanning. And I'm here in FinViz, and let's get rid of that ad there. Let's see if I log. Yeah, okay. I'll get rid of the ad, but we'll come in and let's just take a look at S&P 500. Okay, I'm going to come into performance. Click on performance, and what we want to see is the performance over the past week. Who are some of the top performers? And do we see any kind of trends starting to emerge here? Well, we have Red Hat. Well, they were bought out. IBM went, paid for them, paid big for them, and so Red Hat there on that list. Under Armour, earnings, right? So UAA, UA, both going to react on those earnings. Newell Rubbermaid, or Newell Brands here, excuse me. That's an interesting move. Okay. VRSM, ANET, all right, we're starting to get into some smaller names, not as tradable. ACAM, okay, big earnings pop. Vulcan Materials, interesting, especially since it was downgraded last week. URI, United Rentals, which is really taking it on the chin of late. Seagate Technologies, data, basically your semiconductor, hard drive storage type of stock here. Micron, big top performer here last week. Martin Marietta, TripAdvisor. Okay, so a couple themes here. First theme, just from this front page, first theme, semiconductors, Seagate Technology, Micron, in that top performing list for last week. The next theme here, Martin Marietta, Vulcan Materials. These are generally seen as construction stocks, home builder stocks, that type of name, but very big bounces for them last week. One of them was upgraded, one of them was downgraded, but it was one where, MLM was upgraded, VMC was downgraded last week. But if we come in here, do we see next page? We see some big performers, 10%. Here's Starbucks on earnings, downgraded to sell today. Here's Wynn. We saw MGM on the last page, right? So Wynn, MGM, really nice action in those casinos last week. MGM and Wynn. Harley, DuPont, Dow DuPont. Okay, let's see here. And you see as I scroll over the chart, one of the things I'm looking for is I'm looking for stocks that have, that are basically erasing October's action, right? General Motors is erasing October's action. Completely erasing it. American Airlines, not even close, right? Not even close to erasing the last kind of sell there. CF, not quite, right? But looking for some of those that are already erasing the actions. Here's L Brands, already erasing the action. Let's see here. Quanta, okay. Starbucks, totally erased it. But I'm not all that interested in Starbucks right here. I'll give it a week or two, and see. But it's on, it's generally one of those I generally watch, so it's not something new. Let's see here. NTAP, that's interesting. Macy's, we got a buy signal on that one last week. Wilson, okay. But I'm just kind of scrolling through, looking, okay, are they erasing October's move? Here's Caterpillar, not even close to erasing October's move. So, basically a dead cat bounce more than anything. First Solar. SBAC, cell phone towers, we've talked about those, with the ADT. So anyway, going through this real quick, just going through this real quick, there's some stocks that I note. And those stocks are Seagate, STX, Micron, L Brands, LB, Vulcan Materials, Martin Marietta, VMC, MLM, Casinos, MGM and Wynn, General Motors, and First Solar. Now, what am I going to do with those? Right? What am I going to do with those? Well, I'm basically going to put them on a watch list that I'm going to call, hey, top week performers, and look for a buy signal to come in. Now, we talked about, two different buy signals to possibly see or to possibly await. One of those buy signals being a move above the 391 or stochastics, right? So if we come down into the stochastics, we go to the 39-day stochastics, right? Micron, okay, when it starts to push above 50 on the 39 stochastics, that becomes a nice type of entry point there for it, right? We also talked about the Williams percent R and being able to buy it when the Williams percent R pushes back up. And let's come and put that on here. But here's the Williams percent R when the Williams percent R pushes above -20. All right, so these are stocks that I will throw on a watch list. I will be waiting for both of those. Okay, in fact, let's go and do it here. Let's go and let's just go create a watch list here. I'll just do it here in stock charts in my members page, and let's just come to add new list, and we're gonna go top weekly performers post correction. Right, we'll create the new list, and we'll add symbols here. We'll add many, but we'll add Seagate, Micron, Vulcan, Martin Marietta, MGM, LB, Win, GM, and First Solar. Okay, so we'll add those. And boom, there we are. So basically, what I'll be able to do is to come in very quickly at any time, and just take a look at all of these, very quick. I could come into a 10 per page, boom, it'll throw up the chart here for me, and I could customize this to change it so that the chart shows the 391 stochastics and the Williams %R, which is what I will do, but I won't do that here on video. I won't waste your time with that. But, now I can come in here, draw on them, write on them, those types of things, and, adjust them as needed and continue to add stocks into this. That way, what do I have to do each day? Well, I don't have to do any real homework. I can just scroll down and go, okay, am I getting what I want? Am I getting what I want? Nope, nope, nope. Maybe. Nope, nope. Right, and I could just very quickly scroll through and see it and go. With a lot of stocks out there, this is kind of what I'll do in the morning. I'll just do a quick, kind of flush through. Hey, what's going on? What's happening? Where's it at? And if it's in a spot worth taking, then I start to go look at it a little bit closer here. Okay, all right. So basically, bottom line here, JP Morgan and UNH both had that gap above the 7-hour that's compelling and interesting. I'll take a look at it as the options kind of settle out here a little bit later in the day, for an entry. With Adobe, which I still have, I believe Adobe was down 2% last I saw. Yeah, down about 2%. Still futzing around down around this 200-day moving average. Yeah, it's getting into a little bit of a higher risk area in terms of just absolute flush. I don't think it will do that, but as long as the negatives surround tech, that'll be there. I don't expect that Adobe's just gonna magically snap back today and be good and going. If it does, if it were to rally back to 240, I would look to add some more here to it. No, I have the 250s. I still have plenty of time on them, but that time will be running thin if we don't start seeing a bounce here sooner than later. 250, anything above 250 has value. Anything below 250 is pretty much worthless as time goes by, and so still holding on to that, and still think there's a better than good chance of them doing well, but it does need to see some. It needs to see this level hold. It definitely needs to see this level hold up right here. Okay, but we'll be taking a look at UNH a little bit later, seeing how the options, seeing how the price action holds up. So far, it just hasn't, it hasn't held that gap at all. We also saw the gap at JP Morgan. So far, it's holding its gap a little bit, but looking at it, let me look at the options. Yeah, the options really aren't moving all that much here. So we'll potentially have a nice little entry a little bit later on this afternoon. Thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a great one, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.